The bedrock of a story are people. So you have to find great characters to illustrate whatever story it is. And what makes a great character, in my opinion, is accessibility. When they're authentic with you, when they're genuine with you, when they forget that the camera's there.
Life. So interesting, man.
And then once you have that, it's all about building around that in a way that's compelling to watch and most impactful. I was born in White Plains, New York. We lived there for 4 years. It's just outside of the city. My dad worked in Manhattan. When I was 4, moved to just outside of Richmond, Virginia, and lived there until college, and went to Radford University. I was in media studies and their journalism program. When I graduated, I moved to Charlottesville, Virginia, and I was there for two and a half years, and I worked at NBC 29. So I picked up a camera. I remember going my very first shoot, and I remember the reporter, I had no idea what I was doing. I had zero idea what I was doing. The reporter actually took the camera from me at one point and started shooting the story, and that was my first story at a TV news station. And she actually thought I did a good job for my first time doing it, and then I went back and I've looked at it since, and it's awful. There's jump cuts, and it's like crossing the axis, and it's weird. It like immediately caught me. That's where I got caught. You know, I wasn't like, when I got the job, I was just dipping my toe in it, and and like seeing what I liked. And then once I started, I just couldn't stop. I remember just shooting VOs and trying to do them as as creatively as I could. I wanted to get better. I didn't know how to get better. I didn't know if there was an organization or something, or if there was some way to like streamline improvement, some sort of organization that just taught how to be a great news photographer. And then I started Googling around. I found the NPPA. I saw they had a workshop. I went to my boss and I pleaded with him to send me to it. He made me sign a contract to stay longer, to guarantee that he would have me if he paid for me to go to the workshop. Budgeted it out, like I wanted to go in the worst way, so I went, and that kind of blew my mind open to storytelling and to sequencing and to how to do it right. So I got back, and after that I just tried to put all those things I learned from the NPPA into practice every day. So every day I would try something a little different. I'd try a new interview technique, or I'd try a new lighting technique or audio technique. Then I did the quarterly contest for the NPPA, and I got a second place in something, and Stan Heist, who was the chief photographer at BFF in Baltimore, saw that and called me. And I remember, Stan was the TV news photographer of the year, so I was honored that he would even think of me. And then I ended up getting a job, and I moved up to Baltimore and was there for 4 or 5 years. Working in TV news. I started out on the 3 a.m. to noon shift. We didn't have a photographer covering from 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. There would be all of these like homicides that happened between those hours that I would have to go to. That was pretty scary because, locator 3 hours after a murder, nobody's there. It's just kind of sketchy. At BFF, I feel like it started to really gel for me. I really started to understand the difference between making pretty video and sequencing video well and story. You kind of start to realize how the fundamentals of TV news photography are meaningless if the story isn't there and it's told well. Dave and I met at Fox 45. We just sort of, I think we're just goofballs. I think we just got along really well.
I remember the first day, I was with Stan Heist, and he had said, I'm gonna have you sit in with Darren to learn, the editing system. And so I met him and I thought, here's this tall guy who'd been at Fox 45 for a bit. And, our personalities kind of gelled. We kind of hit it off.
He's an incredibly talented photographer. He's one of the best photographers I know. Great storyteller, understands people really well.
Come on, son.
I was sitting in my car and I had my scanner on and I heard that there was this huge water main break. I pulled up and it is just a river in the middle of the city. So I went handheld and I just started capturing first responders showing up and people watching, and moments happen quick and you get it or you don't. So I went handheld, I just started spraying the scene.
That's a Mercedes!
Anything that made noise, anywhere where people were gathering or excited or something like that, I would get up close, so if my mic was picking up the sound, then I'd capture it, shoot and move, shoot and move, shoot and move, shoot and move. I still felt like I didn't have characters. I call it finding the story in the story. So the story is the water main break, but I was trying to find like a little micro story to tell within it. I went over to this frat house that was like across the street, and these guys were just like characters.
When something crazy happens, we usually refer to it. Come on, son.
They were having a good time. So I just hung out with them for probably 30 minutes, just like getting all of their joking around and having a good time and like making jokes even though their car is getting taken away.
So he really was able to not just take in, oh my God, there's a lot of water happening, let me capture that. He did that, but then he was able to take a step back and say, okay, who are the people that are affected? Who is this impacting? And let me go talk to them. Let me find their story. What is their viewpoint on this?
Come on, son.
My goal has never been to like win awards. It was never a driving force, but you start to realize that they turn into opportunities after a few of those and some MPPA stuff. I felt like I was getting better stories. I felt like I was getting more opportunities. It's expensive to enter the Emmys, and Fox 45 put a lot of money into it and entering. So I was lucky that they felt compelled to enter some of my work.
Darren is a really driven guy. One thing that has lent itself to his career is the fact that he's able to kind of not only look at his process, but also look at like what works. Like, why was that effective when he watches other stories? What did he like from here? And he's able to incorporate all of that feedback and all of those thoughts to help him get better. And I think in news, why he was so successful and why he's been continuously so successful is because he's constantly reinventing himself. He's constantly looking at his process. He's constantly looking at what he's going through and what he's doing, changing it to be more effective. And he does that with his stories. I mean, here's a guy who I've seen build out a sequence, like it. It's awesome. We all watch it. Then he goes home, he thinks about it for a little bit, comes back in and completely redoes it, completely changes it, starts from scratch, and takes it and tweaks it enough that all of a sudden it goes from like, yeah, that's pretty good, that's really nice, to like magic. Seeing this new edit, you're suddenly like, oh my gosh, this is like where it's always need to be.
I remember one night we were sitting on top of my deck in Baltimore.
Sharing a couple bottles of wine, as good friends do.
We started talking about ideas and
kind of starting this idea that, what if we started a company? What if we started a company, we took the foundation of storytelling, the things that we had built up, our knowledge that we had acquired in journalism, and we started a business that was focused on telling people stories, that was focused on finding that authentic voice and giving people an outlet, and not just being corporate, but really giving heart to some companies and businesses.
That's probably where some of the ideas for this production company were first generated. Thea Bright called me up. She was the editor of the video department at the Boston Globe and said that she had seen some of my work and was wondering if I'd ever be interested in something like that. And I was flattered. I loved Fox 45 and what I was doing, and but I was feeling ready to take on something new and try a new challenge, and so it kind of came at just a great time, and ended up moving to Boston.
I could see over the last year of his time at Fox that he had kind of started growing restless, and we weren't, I think, in a position yet, even though we had talked about it, really to say, okay, let's start the business by any means. And this was kind of a way for him to continue to grow and continue to build his skills.
Being with a world-class journalism team in a city where news is falling from the sky was an immense challenge and a lot of pressure. And I think it helped me in a lot of ways.
Pre-Boston Globe Darren and post-Boston Globe Darren were the same person but different in the sense that I think his knowledge base had grown considerably.
I was doing similar things with video, but being challenged in completely new ways. You know, Dancing Cop was a story I just sort of had in my little bin of stories I wanted to do at some point. I met with Tony at his house, and I actually just recorded his audio.
I think Darren brought his style as usual to that piece. The thing that's always stood out in my mind about that piece was not just the sound that he got from the cop, but the sound that he was able to gather from the onlookers.
That's my favorite move right there.
I spent almost more time trying to get shots of people watching him and reacting to him than I did shooting him. Sometimes that's the best. It's funnier when people are watching than what he's doing.
This is amazing.
Darren really worked around the mic like a magician on that piece. This story wasn't just about this cop who's very interesting and who's out there dancing. But the story is bigger, and what I think is what that cop brings to everybody in their day.
Christmas, you all right? Good. Good. How about you?
And by miking up the onlookers, you were able to get a glimpse that this guy brings a lot of sunshine and lightheartedness to people in an otherwise hectic situation where they're wading through traffic. Now they look on and they see this goofy guy and they say, you know, life doesn't need to be that serious.
Oh, hi, Mom. How are you?
I had gotten to a point at the Globe where I was considering going back in television. There was a potential opportunity to be a DP at a TV news station, or it was kind of, I go out and move back down to Baltimore and do this thing with Dave, and it was kind of a no-brainer.
For a good year, we were doing both jobs, and we were seeing success, and we were growing as a company, but we also had our day jobs, and it was growing increasingly harder and harder. And we always knew that looming kind of at some point in the distance, we were going to have to say to ourselves, enough is enough, let's make the leap. And it was nerve-wracking. I mean, to say that it wasn't would be a lie, and we both felt it. You know, it wasn't an easy time, but it was a hopeful time.
We just hit the ground running, trying to get clients, trying to do work, trying to figure out how to build infrastructure and a business.
We were looking for a story to kick off a series that we had come up with called Invisible Thread. And the series was going to highlight people and the themes that unite us all, the invisible thread that connects us all as humans, despite that we have very different paths and very different lifestyles. I met Coffin in the park by my house and saw him yo-yoing, which obviously is kind of an interesting, when you see somebody on Coffin's level yo-yoing. Immediately I was drawn to that. I got his contact information. I came back to the office. I remember Darren was there, I sat down and I said, Darren, come take a look at this. We went out, we shot for the first day, we interviewed him, and immediately though, as he's telling us his story, we're like, there's something here. You know, here's a guy who has a stutter.
This is...
He's had a tough past and a tough life, and he's kind of found a little bit like a salvation. He's found a tool that enables him to rise kind of above that and give him his own voice.
There's too many cell phones, tablets, and game systems.
And that struck us. And so we knew after that first day with him that this is something special.
Life had started to change, actually.
I'm thrilled because Coffin, who hadn't spent much time out of Baltimore, has gotten to fly all over the country. You know, he's gone to film festivals, schools have flown him out to talk to other youth about finding ways to engage their passion and stay out of trouble. It's been cool to have our short film seen by people and passed around. It's just been a lot of fun.
The guy genuinely has a hunger for learning and a hunger to continuously grow and be better. And that's really admirable. And that's something that we all can look at and say, like, yeah, I want to be a little bit more like that. And it's easy to become complacent, and the guy doesn't. And I think that's why he is so humble, because he doesn't think that he is the best. He genuinely thinks that he constantly has something to learn.
Don't settle. You know what I mean? Like, you can do really, truly, like, whatever you want. And it's a matter of being okay with being uncomfortable, because change and striving for what you want makes you really uncomfortable. And, you know, figure out a way to put out work that is the kind of work that you want to receive. So it's a little bit of choosing your own destiny, you know? You can settle and kind of settle into a job you're not happy with or a role you're not happy with, or you can just like make something happen. And no one can do it for you.
For Darren, it's the big picture. It's the whole thing. It's the story. It's the process. It's how you interact throughout. It's being a good friend. It's being there as a mentor or as a boss. And that's something special, and that's something I think to be celebrated, because not everybody's like that. I think that if there were more Darrens out there, I think you would have a very socially conscious, creative space where people are developing interesting storylines and pushing the envelope.
I hope that I'm remembered for being a giving person, for working hard and being a great dad, and that's really all I care about. You know, if somebody sees a story that I did, you know, like 150 years from now, and they go, that's pretty cool, that'll be great.